Hi, I am James Kotecki, and I'm chatting here in the C-Space studio at CES 2020 with Gayle Troberman, the Executive Vice President and CMO of iHeartMedia. Thanks for being here.
Oh, happy to be here. Always fun.
So iHeartMedia, I hear iHeartRadio on the radio, obviously, all the time. But for those you're meeting for the first time, just how do you contextualize your brand and what you are?
Sure. iHeartRadio is the largest everything audio company. So we reach 9 out of 10 Americans on broadcast radio. We have a digital and streaming platform. We're number one or number two every month in podcasts, which is a rapidly growing, exciting business for us. And we do probably 10 to 20,000 live events every year. So if you think about anything audio, regardless of where you consume it, iHeart is there.
How much is the iHeart part of the brand a part of the value that you talk about internally or try to project externally? iHeart being about passion and love.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal brand, right? We had rebranded the company to iHeartMedia, which is our corporate identity, and iHeartRadio is our consumer-facing brand for all our events and our programming. And it's a really powerful, passion-based brand. I mean, at the end of the day, iHeart is about what you want to listen to, whether you're a country fan or a pop fan, or you want to listen to combative political talk radio. You want to go to live events, whether it's country, pop, urban, you name a format, alt, oldies, 80s, 90s, whatever you're into, iHeart has that content, and so the brand has really grown to mean that connection between the fan and the things they love. So it's really easy to understand, and we have phenomenal awareness. It was one of the fastest growing new brands for consumer awareness and adoption and understanding. So we heart iHeart.
Well, we're here at C-Space, which is the media and marketing subsection of CES, and I think everybody here hearts media very much.
It's true.
And a lot of people here are marketers, and you're the CMO. And one question I have for a lot of people in the studio is what that role, what that title actually means to you, and how you think that title might be changing for you and other people.
Sure. I think marketing all up, whenever you put the word marketing in a title or a sentence, I think the range of what it could mean is very, 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 very broad. And that's part of, I think, what draws marketers into marketing. What I've always loved about it is, you can do marketing in traditional ways and non-traditional ways. You can do it through paid media or earned media. You can, you could go out there right now and create some kind of live pop-up moment if you were so inspired, and if you were trying to sell something with it, it'd be called marketing.
Yeah.
So, I think the CMO title for me at iHeart, I spend a lot of my time both marketing iHeart, but we have huge reach and phenomenal engagement with 9 out of 10 Americans. So I spend a lot of my time actually partnering with brands, big and small, new and established, and helping them understand what I think isn't a terribly well understood discipline of audio marketing. Right.
So that leads to a great next question, which
Sure.
is what are some of the least understood parts of audio marketing? What do marketers need to understand?
Sure. A lot of, the misperceptions about audio. I mean, the first one that we spend a lot of time at places like this in CES talking about is broadcast radio is by far the largest part of the audio landscape.
This is the radio in my car that I just turn on that comes with the car.
You could be in your car.
Yeah.
You could be listening to your favorite station, a KISS FM, a Z100. You could be listening to it through a broadcast stream. You could be listening to it on Alexa. You could be listening to it on your phone. But broad, live human broadcast radio still has massive appeal. And while most media, most traditional media you saw declines as digital picked up, what we've seen at iHeart is broadcast radio has continued, according to Nielsen, not my data, Nielsen, has continued to reach about 9 out of 10 Americans, and now we're reaching them in new places through smart speakers, through phones, and so we're just seeing more and more audio engagement. And most marketers really cut right to, if you're going to market in audio, it must be digital. And you're missing your biggest reach platform if you're not also doing broadcast radio.
That is really counterintuitive. So what is the way to explain that. Why aren't people just getting in their cars and putting on a podcast, for example, which would also be great for you because you do podcasting. But why is broadcast radio still? Why hasn't it followed the same trend as other kinds of media?
You know, it's really interesting. We really believe the reason broadcast radio is still the mass reach medium, it's the biggest mass reach medium today in America, is because it's not just music. And that is the thing I think people don't understand. We've always had music collections, right? If you're old like me, you had cassettes, you had CDs, now you have playlists. It's my music, it's amazing, I curate it when I want to kick back, I want to listen, it's my time, playlists, digital music has replaced buying albums, buying CDs. But then there's broadcast radio, and most of our biggest shows play maybe 3 songs an hour. So why are consumers tuning in to live broadcast radio? Companionship. That is the word, right? It is an unscripted, authentic, live human relationship with somebody you tune into over days and weeks and months and years. You have this trusted relationship. Our personalities are vulnerable and honest and say it like it is, and you find your shows. And so I do believe, I think, you know, I started in early digital marketing at Microsoft, and, you know, I think we all thought the digital world was going to connect us and it was going to be a beautiful world of kumbaya and love and access to everyone and building communities. And while some of that's happened, I think increasingly people are feeling isolated in the digital world, and they're seeking human companionship. So this idea of an unscripted, real human, live in the moment conversation remains incredibly powerful. And we're seeing people accessing their favorite shows now more and more ways through digital, but they still want that companionship.
And this is an interesting theme for me as I talk to a lot of tech leaders. The more advanced the technology gets, the more important those human factors really become.
So true, right? The balance between AI and human intelligence, it's so important to get it right.
Are you able to, though, use technology to scale some of that conversation?
Oh, 100%.
So let's say you used to have regional morning shows in every region of the country. Now can't you just take the best morning show chatter and make those 3 people the morning show for half the country?
We can do a lot of that, and we're constantly doing a mix between some of the most amazing personalities, Ryan Seacrest and Elvis Duran, Breakfast Club, and we syndicate those shows because they're amazing and consumers want to hear them everywhere. We syndicate them out to multiple markets, and then we also make them available on demand, through digital, and that's an amazing thing. But we also like to maintain some of that local authenticity and that connection to your local community. So it's a balance of, national
I could meet that
and
person
local
at an event, for example, right?
Exactly.
Down the street.
Exactly. And some of it, sometimes it's amazing that you really are talking about what's happening in, New York or Las Vegas in this moment in time.
Right.
And, sometimes it's really about which personalities you connect to. And if you want to access those personalities, you can do it in your car or on your phone or through any of the smart speakers.
So obviously one of the great emerging formats for conversation and real human authenticity is podcasting, which you are obviously very into. And in fact, I should say to everyone that these interviews that we're doing right now, almost every interview we're doing in the C-Space studio this year will become an iHeart podcast after this.
Which we love.
And we're very excited to be part of that. But what advice do you have for CMOs or anybody in the business world who wants to create a podcast?
Sure.
Is there room for one more podcast? It seems like there's a lot of them.
Oh, there's room for tons more podcasts. I think podcast is growing so fast for a lot of the reasons we just talked about. The idea of unscripted, authentic human conversation. A lot of interview-based and storytelling-based podcasts have done phenomenally well because people are craving that interesting, smart human connection. One of the things I always say as marketers, and I'm probably as guilty as the rest of us, is I think when the millennial generation came along, one of the biggest mistakes we made as marketers was we dumbed everything down. We said, short attention spans, right? You can't handle all 15 seconds of this ad, so just watch 8 and that's cool and you can skip it, right? And what we saw was the same generation is listening, to 3-hour podcasts about history. Right? They're going deep and binging on multiple episodes of a true crime story. And what we're seeing is you've got the most educated generation in the history of humans here in America, with millennials. And as marketers, we tried to make everything shorter and faster. And the reality is podcasts are growing so rapidly, and I think we've really only scratched the surface of the amount of topics and the types of content people want to put out there and people want to consume. It's so much easier in many ways and more accessible.
Well, speaking of scratching the surface, our time is almost up here in the C-Space studio, but I do want to ask you about voice technologies.
Sure.
And just in the moments we have left, how are those kind of emerging technologies, and really they're already ensconced in many people's lives, how do those change your work and your perception of what you're doing with your brand as a marketer?
Sure, I think voice has been an amazing wake-up call for marketers to all things audio. All of a sudden you start realizing, just how easy, as voice becomes an interface, the answer to a question starts with audio. And so I think it's been an amazing, growth opportunity for us. We're seeing more and more listening to our podcast network at iHeart, to our radio stations at iHeart, on voice, platforms, both Google and Amazon. And we're starting to see, I think as people can easily access and curate their content through a simple voice command, we're seeing more and more listening to the established programs, personalities, stations people love. So if you love Kiss FM and pop music, now you just ask for it, and you can pretty much get it instantly anywhere you are. We're on iHeart iHeartRadio is now available on, I think, 250 platforms, over 2,000 devices. So just ask for any iHeart property you love, and it'll be there.
It all comes down to love, which is very appropriate for the CMO of iHeartMedia, Gayle Troberman. Thank you for joining us here.
Thank you so much.
In the C-Space studio. Thank you for joining us in the C-Space studio, and don't go anywhere because more great interviews from CES 2020 are coming your way.